Greetings, brothers and sisters. I have been aware lately, in terms of what we call the truth community, that there's just a lot of holier than thou type of stuff there, right? It's an attitude that I'm very conscious of, where truthers feel like they're so much better than the sheeple and everybody else, and it's just not the case, right? Like, and I'm not saying that in some way that I'm better than them or better than you. It's not like that. Just stuff that I'm observing. And, what I've seen is that people in the truth community, if they were in the same position as the people who control the system, and I'm not saying everybody because that's, a lot of them desire power. A lot of people want a huge audience. A lot of people want their own sort of cult following. They want people hanging on their every word. They want to hold court. They want people to worship them and, or whatever it is, right? There's sort of a desperation and need there, that the same kind of need that the controllers have. And I just don't have that. And I'm not saying that in a way to brag because, like I said about drugs and alcohol, like it wasn't something that I would ever have a real problem with. Like I regret doing as much drugs and alcohol as I did because I didn't really enjoy it. And it's probably hurting me, definitely hurting me now physically. And so, those types of things. But I was never going to become an addict because it just isn't, I don't have some scars for it, right? It's not a possibility in my case, right? Because of the, whatever it is. So some people don't have that. Like there's just not much of a chance of you becoming an alcoholic. Maybe you've had that in the past and you've ascended past that possibility, or it just isn't something that your soul is, it's not part of your program, your script, your time here on planet Earth. But for me personally, I just don't get very much out of being validated by other people. A little bit maybe in the beginning when my YouTube channel took off. That made me feel good. The validation and appreciation. It was because I had a lot of failure up to that point. And I've always been a underachiever, but at this point, it doesn't do very much for me, right? Because I know what I am. Like I'm not, when you meditate and you have a sense of yourself, and I know the limitations of my personality and my commitment to other people and to God, and the things that I could do better, and like I'm okay, right? I'm okay. Like I give myself a solid C, B minus, whatever. But I could do a lot better. So C plus maybe, I don't know, C minus, whatever it is. Like but I'm not that great. Like so, no matter how many people say you're great, like I know I'm not. Like I know that whatever they see in me is there's of course the divinity that comes through me because of being a willing conduit for the divine, which is something that I've been trained to do during doing the Sajmark system, and people might think I'm better than I am because of that, right? But I know, like you can't BS yourself. Like you can't lie to yourself. Like I don't have that kind of talk that I used to have, pumping myself up and positive self-talk and affirmations. Like I don't need that, right? Like I've accepted my my role here, and so for me, I just don't. It's not a big deal. And the more people that, I mean, I'd like more viewers for other reasons. I think a growing audience is essential. At the same time, I self sabotage that by saying things and not, I don't think it's sabotage in the sense of, you can't be true to yourself and sell out at the same time. If you're going to be true to yourself and true to your, audience, you can't sell out. Like you have to be honest, and given the circumstances with YouTube restrictions and all these things, you have to, you're already walking on eggshells or whatever. But I could, just not say negative things about Trump, for example. There's things I could do to not piss off huge sections of the population in the truth community, huge demographics. I could talk like pretend I was a Christian and talk about how great the Bible is, and but that's not why I'm here, right? I'm here to say things that I see things differently, and say those things, whether I'm right or wrong. They're honest. They come from a sincere place, right? And if it makes me less popular, then that's just that's the side effects or the consequences, but it's not the purpose here. It's just that I'm supposed to do what I'm supposed to do. I look at something and I describe it. And that's how I see it. That's how I see the world. And there's things that I know and experiences that I have that make my opinion different. Being dyslexic and these other things, right? And really, I didn't want to make this about me, but I'm just saying that there's an element in the truth community. There are people who are wanting fame and fortune and these other things as their primary reason for doing whatever they're doing, right? Again, like you can make money if the money has it's a means to the ends. Like if you have something you need money for and it's legitimate, then making the money is legitimate. You do it in an honest way, and you have a reason, a divine reason, part of your path that you need money to do something, and you need whatever it is, a bunch of people to do it with you, and there's all those things are great. Community is a great thing. If you're doing it for the right reasons, if you're doing it to serve God and it's part of your soul's path and you're doing what you're supposed to do. The most important thing is something's part of your soul's path. But if your ego is hijacking the process and is looking to aggrandize itself, and that happens, people start off with the right intentions and then their ego gets in the way. And that's happening all over the truth community is what I'm saying. And people bring it to my attention. They expect me to point it out. But, I don't, it's not my job, right? It's not my job to point out things. Even people who themselves watch my videos, I'm not, here to, do that. I mean, at least not on the level of the truth community. I'd rather not, right? Because, it's bad enough what the people who have power are doing. And I can't keep up with all of those things and really don't, at this point don't need to. It's not my job to keep the truth community pure and be some sort of judge and jury for these other truthers and other people because, you all have a relationship with God and you all have a relationship with your soul and you have to find your own path. And I can't control that. And, wherever, I mean, sometimes people get off track and then they find their way back and, that's for each person to decide, right? But I'm saying that as when you start thinking you're so much better than the liberals and so much better than the controllers, you're not. It's just not the way to be, right? You're not. Like you have a different level of perception about some things, and maybe you want to blame somebody or get angry or categorize yourself as somebody different. But we're all contributing to this dysfunctional system, and we all have our character flaws and things we need to work on personally, and that's all we can control, and that's all we can do, right? And like I'm just tired of hearing the comments and the people who are so upset at Biden or in some cases Trump or there's all these people in the truth community who their way of dealing with everything is to just assume that everybody's a shill and part of some plan by the controllers and everybody's a controlled opposition. And they do this because when the person turns out to be, they're on the right side of it and they can go, hey, look, I was right, but you if you call everything a duck, right? And eventually you'll see a duck and you'll be like, I was right, that's a duck. Yeah, but you were wrong all these other times, right? Like just because you've taken a position where, oh my God, everything, I'm not going to get fooled again. I'm not going to get sucked in again. That guy's a shill, like, all that stuff. Yeah, I know, yeah, hey, it's just, like there's just a lot of this goofiness and stupidity in the truth community, right? There's a episode of the show Wings. I didn't really watch that show. But I did see that one episode. There's that guy who was in the movie Sideways. He's got kind of a deep voice. He's kind of funny. He was the mechanic character. And they're playing a game of Trivial Pursuit. And he keeps on saying Anne Margaret because he knows that one of the answers is Anne Margaret. And eventually there's a question there about Anne Margaret, and he's right. But like there's no that just being taking a tack that I don't trust anybody and everybody's a shill and everyone's out to screw me is the wrong idea. Like, everyone has a level of complicitness in the system. We all are complicit to some level in the system. We all are engaging with the system. We're all, part of the beast. There's people who are, part of the whole program, but those are very few people. Because the people who are in the know, they're not going to share more information than they need. All they need to know is how to buy a person, how to buy an Anderson Cooper, how to buy a a Donald Trump, how to, and even if they're not buying him, how do they, use threats and bribes without, ever being accountable with plausible deniability to manipulate somebody to do what they want them to do. And then all the masses, how do they get you to do what they want you to do? Not even being conscious of you as a human being, but within the framework of the system, they are, through fear of, starvation and fear of, alienation from your family and friends and, ostracization or whatever it is, your personal fears and your personal desires are woven into the system, and they get you to go along with it and be complicit. Your personal weaknesses, or they just wear you down and they make you, be a part of the system. So we're all complicit to some way, because if we're not surviving 100% off the grid, then we're, depending on the system. And they say, like I talked about this with my wife, like there's certain restaurants that are like, Subway has their relationship with that guy Jared, which is, the real creep. And there's, restaurants that are owned by known, well, that's owned by Soros or something like that. Yeah, but they're all, you might as well go and enjoy what there is to enjoy and not worry about how scummy everybody is, or how some restaurants are more scummy, or some businesses are owned by this or Disney or any of these things, right? Because it's all, it's all corrupted. The whole system is corrupted. The whole system is dysfunctional. Trying to say, all right, there's a deep state, but there's some good guys in there. Well, that's just childish, right? Like all these people are intertwined and there's a play between them, the left and the right, and the liberals and the Democrats and the truth community and all these things. It's all swirling around to make up a culture. And we're all part of that culture. And just because you're the angry guy and you're the guy saying, hey, yeah, this system's corrupt, and then what are you going to do? I'm going to go have a smoothie, right? What are you going to do next after this protest? Oh, I think I'll go have a smoothie. Like you're a part of it. Like, stop thinking you're so much better and you're so much, yeah, you're more conscious than a sheeple, but are you really any better than a sheeple? Like, that's most people in the truth community are. They're just a different form of sheeple. And as soon as you tell them something they can't handle, they, implode. And so, I'm trying to get to something here, and that's overpopulation, right? That something that I say, and I'm not sure other people say it, but in the truth community, but some of us know the world is overpopulated. The truth community, there was a stupid narrative out there that everybody could fit in Texas and there's so much more space in the world, but you can see the effects of overpopulation. And if you believe in that, please don't comment, because I know what you believe in and you're wrong. And, there's plenty of other people saying what you're saying and you don't get it, and that's not my problem. But I don't need to hear your stupid theory because it doesn't work. It doesn't work because you haven't gone to places like India, but you can go places like that in America, any city, and people don't do well in cities. Cities where is all the depravities coming out of. All these things, all this stuff where, people are seeing, there's that song Small Town, which is stupid, it sucked, but, when you go to the cities, that's where the depravity centralizes. People go insane in cities. We're not colony-based people. We need, a species. We need space. We need, relationship with the land. We need, some, we have, it's like when you have a cow, the cows need, based in the level of grass and, forage, whatever that they eat, whether it's goats or cows or any kind of livestock, even chickens, you need like so many acres per cow. In lush areas, it can be 1 acre per cow. There are places, like Ireland, obviously, but there's places like, that are, like Kentucky's a great place, and, that gets a lot of rain. I mean, there's these places where grass grows well. Kentucky bluegrass, right? Not just that. I mean, West Virginia and all these states, some of them have a longer growing season, right? And then you go out west where they have all the, the old Western cattle. They have BLM land that people would rent. And the BLM land was, government-owned land that private ranchers would get access to. and you might need 20 acres per cow because of the drought, places in New Mexico and some of these places, to find grass and to find suitable food for the cattle. And you'll see the places where the cattle are. They rate cows from 1 to 5, a 5 being the best. And a 5 cow you won't see any ribs showing. The back is flat, like you won't see the spine. I mean, there's all this, fat on a cow is really important. And any livestock, that's where the flavor comes, that's where the tenderness is, these things. And so, you have to have so much grass, so many acres for, depending on where you live. And you need the same thing for crops, right? And you need the same thing for, territorial animals. Like, how many acres does a tiger get, right? Where's the range crossover with the next tiger, where they'll have a fight, where there'll be territorial. Each animal trying to stake out its territory. Like, we have a hummingbird feeder, and there are 3 hummingbirds that come to it, and there's one that, thinks they own the hummingbird, and I've put up a fence there because our cows used to, rub themselves against our air conditioning unit, and, they could have done a fortune, like a lot of damage, so I put a fence around there. People are commenting because I didn't put all, like, clips on it because it's temporary, but it's still there now even after the cows. But I made it, like, just enough so to keep the cows off without having to make it permanent. Like, I didn't drive the metal post in, so whatever it is. But the hummingbirds sit on the fence. The one does. Sometimes 3 of them do. And every time one would approach the hummingbird feeder, the other ones would try to chase it away. It was like a whole thing. They're territorial. And there's a pecking order and things like this. These things exist, being bullied by cows. You see this when you have livestock. There's a hierarchy. But each person needs so many acres of land is what I'm saying. And in a city, you don't have that. And these, Agenda 21, 31 housing, there's even less. It's not the way people were designed to live. We're not designed like bees to live in a hive-like colony or like an ant colony. We're not, that's not what we are as a species. We need space and room. We need fresh air. We need, a relationship with the land, and people crave it. And when you don't have it, you go insane, and that's what's happening in cities where all the overpopulation is happening. And so there is overpopulation. It's localized, and it's global, and, it has to be reduced. And every population, every group has it has like an arc where your population is growing. It reaches maximum density, and then it implodes, and then it goes down to almost being extinct. After a population of any species, it goes from overpopulated to underpopulated, like drastically underpopulated, where there's the threat of extinction. And we're about to be in that time where human beings are in a threat of extinction. And they've done studies on mice and rats and things like this where there's overpopulation and there's insanity. Of course, they start eating their own young, and all these destructive behaviors and addictive behaviors and self-destructive behaviors, almost like suicidal behaviors. They start taking more risks. And you see this with overpopulation where the animals start going insane. And of course, there's weakness that enters into the species, where weak animals and humans, you can see it clearly, where there's a lot of weak people that wouldn't be able to exist if they weren't being carried by the society and other people in the economy. They can't function. They can't contribute. There's so many non-contributing people or barely contributing people that are sucking off the system, and they don't have very much to contribute, right? And so there needs to be population reduction. And the controllers are never going to say that because they can't. And, it would create panic among the masses because lots of people would realize if you're talking about 7/8 of the system, 7 out of 8 people being culled, whether it's by the controllers themselves or it's by natural causes, that would scare the crap out of people, right? When you realize that if it isn't you, it's going to be your family members and friends, right? That, that many people, 7/8 of the population, there's lots of poor people. You see people themselves, like you go into Walmart, you look at these people who have a grocery carriage, a grocery cart full of cancer, and you look at them, and you're like, they're willfully poisoning themselves. They're eating poison. they're feeding their family poison. It's like when you throw, if you throw poison on an ant mound, or you throw, poisonous food out to rats, rat pellets, and they go and eat them, and they bring them back to their kids. Like, that's what's being done. Like, people are walking into Walmart and filling their cart full of poison, and there's more than enough information out there for them to realize that it's poison, and they keep on doing it. And all the other ways that people, are engaging in suicidal and self-destructive behaviors, and yet they don't realize they've been marked for extinction. They've been marked for elimination. They're participating in the culling, right? And they're trying to wipe out genetic lines of people because of the weakness that's come into the system. Of course, the people making the decisions are the first ones that should go. The people who are controlling the system, they're like the worst of the worst, the controllers. And of course, they're trying to preserve their group and their culture and their, what they know as a human life. Everyone wants to preserve what's, sacred and what's, special to them. But that's not the way it's going to go down. Like, it's going to go down. It's going to be comprehensive. There's going to be massive population reduction. And, I think it's already started. We're starting a downward trend, and everything's going to change after that. And, nothing really else matters. All this stuff about, what Biden did here. I'm going to show you some stuff here probably. Maybe not. I'll just do the voiceover, and I'll do that as a separate video later. But, this is probably just a standalone video. I'll just do this overpopulation thing. But this key information that we've reached peak population. Our civilization has grown. You need more and more people to continue growing a civilization. And it's grown as much as it can grow. In terms of technology, in terms of, all these things. There might be some pockets of it left over, and there might be, whatever is, I don't know these specifics, but in terms of the world expanding, human population expanding, and human domination of the world expanding, all those things, it's come to an end. It's come to an end because people are so disconnected from God, and they're so not what they're supposed to be in terms of what a natural human being is, and are so lost and so depraved and so, messed up. Our species is like the worst one on earth. The humans are doing worse as humans than any other species is doing, like as a hummingbird's doing, or a cockroach is doing. Like, they're doing better at being a cockroach than we're doing at being humans. Every other species is doing better at being what they are, even though that we're proliferating and we're dominating all of it. We are, failing on every level. And eventually that's, going to come full circle, and there's going to be massive die-off and the destruction of everything that we know. And all these, things that you're seeing are just a part of that. They're part of the self-destructive behavior. They're part of the deviance. They're part of the mental illness from, living in cities and all the depravity and being disconnected from God and nature and, all these things. They're symptoms of unnatural, unhuman behavior, and disconnecting people from God and their families, and not religious God, not the God of religion. Your religion sucks, and if you're not going to come to terms with that, it's not my problem. Your religion sucks. They all do. They start off good, and then they become a religion, and then they become materialistic, and now they're a middleman, and they've monetized. They've turned God into a currency, and they say they hold the keys. The religion holds the keys to your connection to divinity, usually in some afterlife, because they're not going to promise something that you can experience now, because then you realize God's inside of you and you don't need the religion. And, the religion might have some things to offer, but it's, keeping you down. It's oppressing you on a divine level. And so, it all sucks. But, in terms of what I was saying, people are disconnected from the divinity within them. They're not doing what their soul wants them to do in most cases. Unless your soul wants you to be a villain, then great. That's convenient for you, because it's easier to be a villain. It's easier to be a sociopath in this society. But everything I, cover here that's not about divinity, just about the show, whether it's politics, whether it's, any of these things that are going on in celebrity culture, movies, and, all the various topics. It's fun to watch the destruction for some of us. Like that's why I call it the apocalypse. I'm geared to find humor in these things, and it's interesting in terms of a story. But the bottom line, to reduce it to the simplest terms, is that our civilization has grown in its dysfunction and its demonization of the divine process, and in terms of the ego, growing as an ego, growing selfishness and entitled, and people are failing. Like the product of our system is how the system affects the people. Like let's say you want to lose weight and you go into some system that is supposed to help you lose weight. And the product is whether you lose weight or not, and what other side effects are there if you're taking medication, or what are the side effects of the diet? What are the side effects of the exercise, right? And so did the system deliver in you losing weight, and also did deliver in helping you become a better person? Because if if you lost weight but you're somehow more toxic because you're taking medications that have side effects, or whatever it is, right? Like that, whatever that medication is, don't care, don't tell me, don't need to know, all these celebrities are taking now. You're losing weight, but you're destroying your liver, say, or whatever, becoming a toxic person, and you end up in the hospital. So that's a system. There's a system you have for everything. You have a system of how you get food. Like what's your dietary system? A mixture of food that you make at home, a mixture of like going out to eat and these things. But you have a system and how you absorb nutrients through food, and and that affects you. Like what are the side effects of your system? And if you don't really have a planned, thought out system, and you're just doing what the you're looking at the food pyramid, or you're not even doing that. You're just accepting whatever you're given, and you go to McDonald's and you're eating whatever's there, and you haven't done any research, you haven't figured things out for yourself. They're trying to poison you. That has an effect, right? You have a system of how you shop for clothes and how you manage your life. Everyone has systems in their lives that are governing your everyday whatever it might be, and then we have our overall system. And those systems affect you. They affect the way you turn out as a person, what kind of person you are, what kind of character qualities. They pull things out of you. In our current system, you do well if you're selfish. You do well if you have a killer instinct. You do well if you're a sociopath or sociopathic tendencies. Of course, if you go too far, then you run into the criminal justice system in some cases. Some sociopaths end up being above that, right? But, in terms of financial rewards, in terms of, fame and fortune and things like this, being selfish, being a killer, being somebody with, ambition and, are competitive in these things, you do well. Having qualities that don't serve you as a spiritual being aren't a reflection of your soul. Being somebody disconnected from God, not having a conscience, not having empathy, right? Because when you start becoming successful, you realize you're doing some raw stuff, some horrible stuff. And then your conscience kicks in and you start sabotaging or wanting to get out, or you want to give up your success because you feel so guilty you can't sleep. So if you don't have a conscience, you can do all the bad stuff and, you're not affected. So having a conscience, having empathy, having compassion, those are bad things, right? And so the system is creating horrible people. Either they're sheeple, people who are just going along, they're miserable, they have a crappy job, they're just cogs in the wheel, they've gone unconscious, they're walking zombies, walking ghouls, they're not, enlivened in any way. And, there's that element, and then there's the people who are running them, who are exploiting them, enslaving them, and, part of the controlling aspect of the system. But good people are suffering. And the system is trying to beat the goodness out of you, beat the saint out of you, and create you as a selfish person, either a corrupt leader or a dumbed down unconscious follower. And so this is the kind of people this system creates, where we could be better in a different system, a system that pulls out the best in us. And so therefore this system has to collapse, because the people it's producing are self-destructive, and it's destroying ourselves physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually, taking us in the wrong direction. It goes against the natural order of things. And all systems collapse, but this one is collapsing from its own depravity. The weight of its depravity is pulling it down. And the overpopulation aspect and the degradation of the people are all things that are symptoms of the impending collapse of our system, a system that is enslaving all of us, and yet we're all addicted and dependent on it to some extent. So we're scared of it collapsing, but we know deep down that it's for the best. So in terms of the truth community, it's that people have to come around to, and most people aren't going to get there because it's just too scary to think that the system that you're 100% dependent on isn't something you can redeem or fix, and you're just going to chase people who give you false hope. And have you taken your hopium today? Right? Has your hopium helped you today? Are you continuing on with your hopium because you need it to function in the system? Because people have a hard time becoming comfortable with understanding that the system's collapsing, and that's going to happen whatever it does. And whatever you see is just, no matter how appalling it is or how sucky it is, it's you seeing the reason why the system has to collapse, making it easier for you to accept, and then spending your time preparing. If you want to be somebody who maybe sees the other side of the apocalypse, who's going to be one of those 1 out of 8 people that makes it when the population is reduced, and you feel like you have something to offer on the other side, of course younger people, and that you're willing to endure some of the difficulties, or you're just going to be somebody who goes out with the rest of the people. And so there's no reason. I mean, I guess it's always good to move forward in some way and start retraining yourself, because we've lost years and years of ancestral, not years, generations of ancestral knowledge that people used to use before this system, which is an anomaly. It's a defunct, fraudulent economic system that lured people away from the farms with this false promise that you could give up your ancestral knowledge and your abilities as villages and tribal people and homesteaders and all these things, living off the land type people. You could give up all those skills, and you were a much more highly functioning person back then, the people then, because they had so many more skills than the people who get a specialized job and you only work 8 hours, 8 to 16 hours or whatever it is, right? And then you get money and buy everything else. And you do one mundane task. You don't have all the responsibility and all the work that you did on the farm. And so that was a promise that you wouldn't need those skills again, that the system would always be here to take care of you. And if you just gave up, what you did before, your lifestyle before, which people didn't want to do, but they were forced off the farms, they came to the cities, and they started working through the system itself. They found a role in the system to become gainfully employed with the idea, with the promise that the system would never let them down and leave them stranded without those skills that they used to need, for generations. And now, of course, that promise is broken, and people are going to need those skills, right? So, doing something along those lines, even if you're not going to be one of the ones who make it, you're moving forward in terms of your next life in a positive direction. And the most important thing is to connect to God internally, because that's the broken, that's the first thing that they did. They broke people's connection to God and nature and the family. First God, and then the family, and then nature. And so that people would accept this abomination of a lifestyle and a culture that's so unnatural for them. They have to break you of that. Like if you break a wild animal of its natural tendencies, you throw it in a zoo somewhere. Like that's what they did to you. You're all zoo animals. We're all zoo animals. And so, there's where the hopium comes in place, because, you have this idea that you could be a zoo animal and still have, fulfillment as a human being, and you're not going to have that unless you become connected to God and you start reclaiming your natural tendencies and your natural, your natural, the best part of you, the ultimate, version of yourself, the soul, the full soul expression of your humanness, your soul manifesting as a human being, instead of this egotistical, selfish piece of crap that you are now, right? A hopium addict. But you can be comfortable with this knowledge, knowing that, death is inevitable and the end of the system is inevitable, but it's not evil, it's not bad. It's just what needs to happen. And either you're going to be somebody that is able to help out in a post-apocalyptic world and rebuilding something that would be a reflection of the divinity within you and within other people. That people are going to build a better system that aligns with what it is to be a natural soul functioning human being, a soul driven existence, and throw away this egotistical, selfish, narcissistic, demonic system and move forward into something better. And so you're either going to be one of those people or you're not. And what are you going to do with the time you have left? And if it's to, go to Walmart and stuff your face with carcinogens, well then, you've already selected your role in this, in the depopulation process, right? You're already self-selecting to be one of the people that just gets culled because you're culling yourself, right? You're literally committing suicide, and and not just a suicide where there's the death, but you're committing like we're going to be unhealthy and toxic, and just not able to function. You can't have clear thoughts, eating poison food, and just absorbing toxins and poison from the system. You can't be a clear thinker, and you can't have a good life when your whole body's filled with toxins and poisons and self-medicating and addictions to gambling and all these things and sex addictions and all the rest of it. You can't be a fully functioning person because of that. You're not going to function fully because you're being impaired by all the poisons that you're ingesting. And most people are so toxic that they, their life force, their prana has been absorbed, and they're walking around like ghouls and zombies, the living dead. That's what it means, and that's the metaphor here. That's what zombies. You see these zombies, but it's just a metaphor for people who have basically died, but they're still animated in some way. But there's some time left before the apocalypse, the culling, your own personal demise, your death, or whatever. You have so much time left. And what are you going to do with that time? How are you going to apply that time to something that is going to move you forward and grow more of a connection between you and your soul, develop your heart, the meditation that I do, the gratefulness meditation that I do and some of the people here do. But whatever it is that you choose to, facilitate this connection with the divinity within you and move forward with becoming what you were meant to become before the system hijacked your life, before the system destroyed your life and sent you in the wrong direction, right? Before it lured you off of your soul's path. And so, that's what waking up would do. Ultimately, you would wake up and you would change what you're doing. All these people claim to be woke or awakened or, I woke up. Well, did you? What are you doing differently, right? I see you're eating a Twinkie, so how awake can you be, right? I just, you have to, something has to change, right? You have to change the trajectory of your life in some way and do something differently. And it's taking personal responsibility and focusing on the people that are running the system and blaming them for everything or blaming some group, the liberals or the Trumpers or whoever it is, right, isn't going to get it done. Like that's not being awakened. That's just shifting the blame and taking no responsibility for your part and role in this thing. And what are you going to do with the time you have left? When you realize the system itself is a dysfunctional system and it's taking you in the wrong direction, then what do you do to find the right direction? How do you, find something to lead you? How do you find the answers? Asking yourself, I covered this in maybe my last video here, asking yourself, why am I here? Why am I here? What am I doing here? What's my purpose here? And if you don't, ask yourself that, and if you don't come up with the right answer, you don't figure out why you're here, then, what difference does it make? Your life is a waste. If you're not here as you don't have a purpose, you don't find your divine purpose, you don't find your reason for existing, then it's a mistaken life. You're just wandering around lost and, chasing waterfalls. Don't go chasing waterfalls. You're just, it's not waterfalls either. It's, strippers and, drug addict and, all these things. You're a Hunter Biden. You're somebody just, going through life and a desire-based person, and getting these rewards like a rat hitting the buzzer and getting a shot of coke, whatever it gets, a little dose of some sort of hopium just to keep yourself going, and you're not really a purposely, a soul-driven existence. You're not living a soul-driven existence where you have a purpose and you have, a reason for being here. That there's some, work that you have to do, some tasks you have to achieve, some obstacles you have to overcome, and something to accomplish here. And most people don't have that, and it's sad, but that's why when you disappear 7/8 of the population, it's not going to be a tragedy. It's just people going in the wrong direction who are lost and can't extricate themselves out of their circumstances. And, that's really all of us to some extent. And so there needs to be like a cleansing and a purification of the human condition. And it starts with depopulation and systemic collapse. And then a, redemptive movement can begin. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.